So this month it's Growth and Development Month, and we've picked growth and development because it kind of fits with the seasons and the themes of that kind of going on in the world at the moment. We are rapidly heading towards the spring equinox, which I believe in the pagan tradition is called Ostara. Um, Basically, what's happening is the days in the winter are longer, and the kind of we're coming to a point now where we're having balance throughout the year. The night and the day are about the same, coming to about the same length, and then we're going to step into a period of time where we really are welcoming back the light, and stepping into the summer as well, going from spring to summer. And I'm delighted to have James back on the show tonight. James is our spiritual philosopher, teacher, leader. He's an amazing yogi, and I just love it when he comes on the show. James, thank you so much for coming back and chatting to me.
Hey, Amanda, thank you for having me. It's great to be on the show as always. Yeah, so looking forward to this conversation today.
Good. Growth and Development Month. How important is growth and development in our lives?
Well, arguably, that's the whole point of us being here, to grow and to develop and to have experience. So, from studying evolution at university on a biological level and then looking at evolution on a spiritual level after university, it seems that evolution growth is a natural inclination of all species, that we are growing and evolving individually, and we are growing and evolving as a species. And that's always happened. And just because we're now, these Homo sapiens and we're walking around and doing all these things, it doesn't mean that as a collective, we have stopped evolving. We're still evolving. And we evolve individually and collectively. So I'd argue that growth and development is one of the main reasons that we're here on planet Earth.
And we can really see it, can't we? We can see it out in nature at the moment. We can see the shoots appearing through the ground. We can really see it. And I feel like, as the winter kind of waxes, as it kind of, we got that wax and wane of the winter disappearing and the spring coming, I feel like as people, we start to want to do more. We want to kind of get out more, and we really start to kick up our own personal growth and development as well.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, obviously, last month we talked about it being the time of death during winter, the winter months where the days are shorter, it's colder, there's less sunlight. So the body does naturally biologically shut down, and we go into that hibernation mode. And now we're in Pisces, and Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. So astrologically, we're coming to the end of the year.
Right.
And Pisces is all about letting go. It's about the subconscious. It's about karma. It's a very spiritual sign. So it's a great opportunity now just to release that which needs to be released as we move truly into spring and the spring equinox on it's the 20th of March this year, which is that it's the first day of the astrological new year. It's as we move into Aries, and Aries is the first sign in the zodiac, and it's a fire sign, cardinal fire. So it's the light, the heat, the sun, like you were saying, it starts to become more dominant than the night. And so we have those longer, brighter days, and we have more sunlight. And so things start to grow and blossom in nature, and also our energy levels increase. We start to feel more vitality and obviously the energies of spring. And so we can really start to put into practice that which the intentions we've set, or really set strong intentions after we've shared and let go and released from the winter months. So it's an incredibly positive time. I personally always find Easter, being born in April, to be the best time of the year. It's that rebirth, that renewed start. So yeah, really, really excited about that.
My sister-in-law lives on a farm, and it's at this time of the year that we start to see lots of lambs being born, and I adore it. One of my favourite things is when you see the lambs in the field and they're kind of jumping and skipping. That's just such an expression of that renewed energy that you start to feel at this time of year, and the daffodils and everything. It's really great. So, growth and development, an absolute, like you were saying, it's possibly the reason why we're even here. It's such an essential part of our spiritual journey. Tell us a little bit more about growth and development from your perspective and how it influences your life.
Well, I think, like I said, we're always growing and developing from, when we're a baby and we're learning basic motor skills. We learn how to walk, we learn how to talk, and then we go through school and we learn these subjects, and we learn all these skills and develop knowledge. So again, I think life is set up for us to grow and to learn. I think the question is about spiritual growth, and how do you separate what is spiritual growth and what is normal growth, if you like? I think spiritual growth truly occurs when we experience challenge, and when we start to really apply ourselves and start to learn about spiritual concepts. Though I would argue that whether you're spiritual or not, you're always growing, you're always evolving. There comes a point, though, when spirituality becomes someone's main or a large focus in someone's life. And when that happens, we start to grow and evolve in a slightly different way, where we're not necessarily just acquiring knowledge. We're not just learning theory. We're not memorizing things. We're not just learning basic skills or learning a sport or learning, how to work a machine, which I guess is growth, of course. But spiritually, when we grow, it's where we start to expand our consciousness. It's where we start to heal the body. It's where we start to heal and release trauma. It's where we start to grow in spiritual understanding. And it's an expansiveness. It's an expansion of consciousness where we break down those limiting beliefs and perspectives on the world. So often, a lot of people initially maybe atheistic, materialistic, very self-orientated, just very much focused on money and work and, getting drunk at the weekend or going for a meal at the weekend or whatever. And, very kind of more
like corporal, more body related stuff, I guess.
Body, or it's materialistic.
Materialistic is a good word.
And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with just focusing on that. That is an experience. I think it's something we all go through, and it's fun. And again, I think ultimately we're here for experience. Even before we start thinking about growth and evolution, we're all here for an experience. So there's nothing wrong with a material experience and a limited 3D experience. But for a lot of us, and again, for you and I, and for those listening to the show, and the people that we probably meet and spend most time with now, a lot of us have started to go onto this spiritual path where we go through our spiritual awakening and spiritual growth. And that often comes through some sort of trauma, some sort of crisis, not always, but often it does. And we might get into yoga, or we might get into Reiki, we might go for hypnotherapy, we might watch a documentary on YouTube, and we start to change the way we perceive the world and we perceive ourselves, and our awareness, our understanding, our consciousness starts to expand. We start to have a grander, wider, more expansive understanding and vision of ourselves, of the universe, and our relationship to the universe. And we go from a materialistic, 3D, mechanical, Newtonian kind of understanding of reality, the universe, more to this understanding, recognizing energy and the way that our consciousness interacts with energy and with life, and our relationship to source and these other energies that exist, and maybe we can't see these energies, different consciousnesses that exist, whether it be plant, earth, animal consciousness, or again, hidden consciousnesses. And we start to just develop a greater, more expansive vision of reality.
And I feel like also with that, what's quite often unconscious becomes more conscious. You know, it might be that we've had some feelings about, say, family members, or we've had some feelings or some thoughts about some negative experiences that we've had, things that we've experienced in the past, and we've forgotten about them. We've put them to one side. They've become quite buried almost, and sometimes those buried experiences, perhaps they were traumatic experiences or negative experiences, those buried experiences can cause us to respond or react. It's more a reaction than a response. Cause us to react to life in different ways. We might be triggered to behave in a particularly negative way. Those triggers might be things like drinking too much, or smoking, or being angry in a non-constructive way. And I think at this time, when we go through those changes, those unconscious things, sometimes very much connected with memories and experiences, come right up to the surface, and it can be quite full on as well. You know, if you break a leg, you remember that you've broken your leg, but you don't remember the pain of the break. But when we remember emotional traumas from our past, relationship breakdowns, family separations, arguments, accidents, even negative situations, things that have happened to us. When we remember those things, we remember them in full multicolour glory, and we remember all of the emotions connected to those experiences as well. And that can be an incredibly overwhelming sensation when those things that are unconscious become conscious. That can be quite a painful process, as well as being a challenging process.
Definitely, definitely. And from my experience of doing this work, there tends to be a pattern that people go through, a process that people go through to come into spirituality and then healing. And that pattern and it's a pattern we all experience to one degree or another. As a child, our parents, bless them, are not perfect. No one's perfect. They have their story. They have their conditioning and programming. They do the best they can. And it may be one parent, maybe both parents, maybe no parents. But ultimately, our needs are never completely met as babies and as children. It would be very, very difficult for that to happen. There often is some sort of abandonment issue with maybe one or both parents not being around as much as we would need them to be. There could be some sort of physical or sexual, emotional abuse. There can be conditional love. So conditions put on love. If you do this, this, and this, you get my love. If you don't get the love. There can be all sorts of situations in a baby and a young child's life that create scars, which is how we refer to it in the Indian tradition, sanskara. It's a scar, it's a memory, it's a painful, traumatic memory that's stored in the subconscious. And as you were saying, those scars, those memories are sensory. So they have the color, the sound, the touch, the tactile, the smell, the vision, everything. It's an image. It's like a clip of a movie stored in the subconscious, and it has all the senses. So it's very real, and it's fixed and stored there because it's registered as traumatic. The child does not, the way the child's brain works, it doesn't have the ability to discriminate which it experiences and that which it comes through the senses. So everything that happens to a baby, to a child, is literal, is real, and is gospel. So they can't say, oh, mummy's just having a bad day, or dad's gone to work, or this, that, the other. It's all very, very, very real. And it becomes stored in the subconscious. And
from a
Basic.
from a hypnotherapy perspective, we're actually we're not we're still developing our conscious mind. We're up until about the age of 5. We're pretty much operating from our unconscious up until we're about 5 years old. Our conscious mind is developing, and the unconscious mind is literal. The unconscious mind doesn't get humor. I don't know if you've ever seen any like stage hypnosis
A little
where
bit.
where the stage hypnotist will say, I want you to imagine that I'm gluing your bottom to the chair, for example. I'm going to glue your bottom to the chair. Can you feel how sticky the chair is? You're stuck down now. You're stuck to the chair, and the more you try to stand up, the more difficult it will become. And at that point they're in hypnosis. So they're in that literal, absolute 100% understand exactly what you're saying as it is, without that kind of conscious differentiation there. And so they'll try, but try does not mean succeed. Try means try. So you'll see them like struggling to get up, trying, I'm really trying. And the more they try, the more difficult it is. And people can't understand why they can't get up. It's because they're using the word try.
Mm.
And the word try has a massive impact. It's a suggestion to our unconscious mind that we're not going to succeed. So when we talk about, oh, I've been really trying to stop smoking, I've been really trying to stop getting angry, I've been really trying. Well, yeah, you're not succeeding there, are you? You're just
Mm.
trying. And another way I see it quite often is with natural fertility. When families, mums and dads are wanting to create a family, they'll say, oh, we've been trying for a baby for 2 years and we've not managed to get pregnant yet. And it's like, well, that's because you're trying. And quite often
Mm.
people will say, oh, we stopped trying and then we got pregnant. And it's like, because you stopped trying. So up until about 5 years old, a child is operating purely from their unconscious. And you can also see it in play, because when they're playing, I don't know, pirates, they're really immersed in that whole imagery, that multicolored game. It's real. They can see it, they can smell it, they can touch it. I love watching children play when they're in that place. It's utterly fascinating to see them.
Mm.
That that sword they're playing with in their imagination. It's real. They're holding it in the hand. They can feel it. It's there. And from a traditional Chinese medicine perspective, they see things going in 7-year cycles. So
Mm.
I quite often see, and I believe that the unconscious mind is still very dominant in development up until about the age of 7. Their conscious mind is not fully developed, so everything that happens to you between birth and 7, and possibly even still whilst you're in the womb as well, there's lots of information there that says that while you're actually growing, while you're still within your mum, while you're growing, you can be very, very much influenced as well. And those traumas, those experiences, it might not have actually been a dangerous situation or a bad thing, but because they're operating from their unconscious, they're experiencing it literally. They haven't developed the understanding, the logic, if you like, that adults have. So yeah, like you were saying, they probably don't understand that mum's just having a bad day. They don't have that ability or that perception of the world yet, and that can be such a small thing, such a tiny little thing, and with no blame, and no, kind of no assigning of pointing of fingers to parents. But that can be just a small thing that can be read as as traumatic by the child, and that can be something that stays with you right into adulthood, and can be locked in the body, locked in the mind, locked in your systems, and can be causing you to react to situations in a way that's not particularly good. And then, like you were saying, when you enter into that spiritual path, when you get on that spiritual path, these little things start to come to the surface and become more conscious. And that's when we have this amazing opportunity to work on them. So after things could become
Yeah.
conscious, what's kind of next in the process?
Well, so I think you touched on some important points there.
Mm,
Um, yeah, children are essentially in a state of hypnosis. Before the age of 2, they say brain waves, delta waves. So there's literally no ability to discriminate. Delta is also deep sleep, deep unconscious state. Then from 2 to 7, the more in theta. And again, theta is that deep imagination state, again, similar to hypnosis as well, or shamanic journeying. So very strongly working with the imagination. So children, they say, and I think it's the Jesuits who said, give me a child before they're 7 and I'll show you the man, because the
mm,
idea is that you can form, based on those first 7 years, you can have a good guess as to how a child is going to turn out based on the conditioning, based on the way they're brought up. And then from
mm,
7 to 12, they say it's more, again, the brain is working differently. So it's alpha waves from 7 to 12. So that's a playful, happy, joyful state where we learn a lot. But yeah, basically pre-puberty, especially 0 to 7, children, babies are incredibly impressionable. So the experiences are registered and stored, and the painful traumatic experiences are registered and stored, and they are constantly playing, if you like, in the
mm,
subconscious. If it was very traumatic, it's almost like it's always happening. And that's why people, as they get older, they're constantly feeling anxious, but there's no understanding. Why am I feeling anxious? There's
mm,
no external
mm,
stimulus, or like
mm,
post-traumatic stress, gone to, been to war, or any sort of real trauma. Then almost just like on the edge, and it just takes something small, some small trigger, to create like a panic attack or some real strong anxiety. So what typically happens, again, we hit puberty, and then we're just kind of going through our school, and maybe trauma can start at any time. But typically what we start to do, we start to attract certain life situations into our lives where they're reflecting the trauma and the programming that have happened previously.
mm, mm,
So, um, so take, for example, a girl who was sexually abused, for example. She may be quite promiscuous as she grows up. She may find men that use and abuse her. She may, and so these patterns that are there in the subconscious, or the trauma that's there, are repeated, or the father that was never around. They'll keep attracting men who will abandon and maybe cheat on the person there. And
mm,
so it's like life will, you'll repeat these same subconscious patterns over and over again. And life is just saying, look, here's a lesson for you to learn.
mm,
Why do you think this thing keeps happening? Why is
mm,
this traumatic event you're hanging around? It could be anything. It could be you work with a boss who bullies you, and your parents bullied you when you were a child. It could be you've got friends who you can't trust and steal from you, and there was trust issues and abandonment issues from childhood. It can be anything. We all have some sort of trauma. We all have some sort of feeling of not being good
mm,
enough, that we don't deserve love.
mm,
And so we look for external ways to find that love. And often and for example, another common scenario is men who work very, very hard, and women, of course, but from my work, I see it more with men, is they just become so engulfed and engrossed in their work, working ridiculously long hours, and that they make themselves ill,
mm,
and but why are we putting ourselves into that situation? And there's something in the subconscious that's saying, I'm not good enough, I've got to do this, I've got to earn money, I've got to be married, I've got to have the big house, I've got to be a size 8, I've got to be this, that, the other. And sooner or later, the trauma, the crisis, the breakdown occurs, and
mm,
someone says, I can't do this anymore. It could
mm,
be a real health issue, or a
mm,
real just terrible relationship situation, or a terrible work situation, and it becomes so bad. And often illness is one of the most common ways. And someone says, I need to change. I need to do something. I need to change. I've been to the doctors. They've given me these drugs. They take away the, you know, the some of the symptoms, but it's not. I get all these other symptoms from the
Mm.
drugs, or I know it's not going deeper to the root cause. And so
Mm-hmm.
this is when people start to realize there's an issue, and so then start to look to alternative ways, holistic therapies, for example. And normally in that healing process, or seeking help from someone, they start to get a different concept of reality. And again, it could be,
Mm.
yes, through through just even simply understanding there's something called energy. You know, and
Yes.
energy is real, and we can work with energy, and everything actually is energy. We know this through science, but that's normally what has to happen for people to really start to wake up spiritually, to start to grow spiritually. It can happen organically. It doesn't have to happen like that. It can be just a natural inclination to start learning and studying these things. But from my experience, and I'm sure from your experience as a therapist, this is what I see all the time.
Mm. I've been doing a little bit of reading just recently, and I'm putting together my next weekend of teaching for my diploma course. And next weekend we're going to be actually doing regression
Mm,
and revivification, where as a therapist, what we do is we work to go back to those points in childhood, where we can learn from them, understand them, reflect on, and change how we feel about what happened to us then, so that we can respond well, we can heal, in kind of this time. It's almost like we give people a time machine and take
that's
them
it.
back to those negative
Mm,
experiences, and deal with them and work with them and heal what happened in the past. But what
mm,
I was reading about just a couple of days ago actually was about how quite often we choose this life. We choose to have those experiences happen to us, and I've been doing a little bit of. I do past life regression, but I'm doing a little bit of research on the life between lives at the moment,
mm,
because you can regress people back to previous lives where they were, and I've been regressed back to a time when I was a monk.
mm,
Was a little bit odd, but I
mm,
was a monk, and I've been here before, as another in another body. My kind of soul has come into this body for this life, and it was really interesting, because what it was saying was that I have chosen to have those traumas. I have chosen my parents. I have chosen this particular path because I need to grow and develop, and I need to learn specific things. I know that some of the stuff I was reading was from more Indian philosophy, and it was actually a chakra course that I was looking at, and he was talking about balancing chakras, and how the chakras are sometimes like wheels that are kind of a bit too open or a bit too closed or out of balance, and sometimes that can be because we're meant to experience or learn from a particular traumatic event. Tell me a
mm,
little bit more about the philosophy around kind of choosing
mm.
to go through difficult situations, because I know you've studied this whilst you've been on your sort of spiritual journey.
It's a really good point that you bring up about that, is that there is something called karma, and karma means action, and it's cause and effect. So cause and effect is one of the basic laws of reality. As you do, as you sow, so you reap. So whatever you do has an equal and opposite a reaction there. So on one level, our actions from the past have led us to this lifetime. And in that sense, we're kind of just picking up the story from where we left off previously. And they say that you carry through all your skills, all the hard work, your spiritual attainment from previous lives into this life. So it's not like you have to start from the beginning again. You kind of, you will have the experiences you need to have to get you back to kind of that place where you last left off. But there is also the idea, as you've described, that we choose our life, we choose our parents. Now, how much control we have over that, only God knows, right? We can't be 100% sure, obviously, how it all works and that spiritual mechanics of it all. But there is definitely an aspect on a higher level. So if we look at this on a high level, our higher selves know exactly what's going on, and they've chosen it. As limited humans, when we die, we go into the astral. How much choice do we have? I'm not 100% sure. Our higher selves know exactly what's going on, and it's certainly planned on a higher level perfectly. Either way, it doesn't really matter. Well, actually, I think it does matter, because sometimes we can feel resentful about the life that we live. We can feel like, why me, or why am I going through this trauma? But there's no doubt whatsoever that our challenges and our traumas are our initiations, and that areas where we're challenged are areas that we become masters in ultimately, eventually. Because if you have a challenge, you need to learn about it, you need to study it, you need to master it, you need to overcome it. And therefore we develop so much understanding and knowledge of that situation that we develop the skills to then pass on to other people. So this brings then into this concept of dharma. And dharma means duty, our spiritual duty. We all have a dharma. We all have a duty, a spiritual duty. But a lot of us aren't necessarily living our dharma or our spiritual dharma. And the dharma is basically doing what we love to do, living our passion. And that is essentially doing a job that we love, and most likely is helping people or the planet in some way. And often, again, this tends to be the process that, childhood, the trauma occurs, we forget about it, we go through life, then the trauma reoccurs, we have a meltdown, we have a breakdown, then we seek help, we have an awakening, and then we seek to heal that issue, we seek to heal around that area. And over the years, it can take years, it could take lifetimes, but I think for this lifetime, a lot of people are healing incredibly quickly.
Really?
It's incredible. This is such a significant time on the planet right now. There's so much change. This decade is going to be huge. We're already seeing the system collapsing. The system of control is starting to lose its power. We see that, and it's becoming more and more evident. So it's very exciting. And that's in part because so many people are waking up. Because the external is just a projection, a collective expression of what's going on internally. So many people are waking up, they're healing, they're waking up to the past, they're healing the past, just like you said, going into childhood, forgiving parents, releasing the past. But when there's enough healing has been done there, then people become ready to start also healing. They become teachers and healers because they've gone through their initiation, and then they truly come into their dharma, their passion, what gives most excitement. And the idea is, therefore, you're living at a higher frequency, the universe supports you, you're helping to change your local environment and the collective environment. And you could say that all of that is planned to the T. Yep. But it's that's a big question, one of the biggest philosophical questions.
Yeah.
Free will versus fate and destiny. And when you look at astrology and you go deeper into it, you kind of start to think or realize that actually destiny and fate are arguably everything is predestined. But it's a debate that's always open.
I think there's a duality to that. It's like the two sides of a coin, fate and choice and free will. I think maybe it was your fate that you chose that. Maybe it was your destiny to discover. I love that concept of dharma, by the way. That your destiny to discover that this is your dharma, that this is your
Mm.
journey. I don't know that there. It's like two sides of a coin almost.
It's a difficult one because obviously we do have free will. Like in the
We do.
3D, we can choose to do whatever we want. So there is free will.
Mm,
But I've also heard it described that certain major uh, events, chapters, meetings, relationships, traumas, is that stuff is kind of there. And if you
mm,
look into astrology, it's crazy because everything, every day, the way the planets align,
mm,
it's almost like uh, it's giving you a indication of kind of what's going on internally because the planets are nothing, they're external expressions of internal archetypes. So there's
mm,
actually nothing is external. Ultimately everything
mm,
is a projection of consciousness, and so the planets and the stars and the sun, that's all part of our consciousness. And so it's a big question, and you could have a whole show talking about that. I don't want to get too much into it, but back to that original point, there is definitely an intelligence and a guiding principle in our lives. And there are certain things that we can't escape from. We can't escape from our childhood, in terms of what had happened, but we can heal it. We can resolve issues from the childhood. And the work that you described, I think, is the most important work, is going back into the past, healing the inner child,
mm,
going back in hypnotherapy or
mm,
meditation. There are different ways you can do it, but it generally involves going into an alternate state of consciousness
mm,
where the programs and the trauma and the memories and the experiences can start to come up. And
mm,
then we choose to relate to those things differently. We accept, we forgive, we love, we embrace, we release, we let go. But certainly doing that inner child work that you
mm,
described, I think
mm.
is one of the best ways of doing that.
It's one of my favorite therapies that I offer.
Mm,
I run a 2 day inner child workshop where we regress back to the main the key stages of development, and we rescue that little child and we
mm,
nurture that little child. My favorite bit is that we get to play like
mm,
that child. So we do finger painting, we make musical instruments, we get into collage. I love a bit of collage, James. I love some collage work, and just get really creative. And there's so many other ways that we can express that inner child as well. Mindful colouring books are really in at the moment. I love colouring in, and
mm.
it's you can hear the little child in me
Very
going,
therapeutic,
yeah,
isn't it? Yeah.
it's colouring in time, yeah,
Mm,
get the crayons out. I love Play-Doh,
mm,
making bread. Well, these things can be so playful, and just by allowing that part of you to have fun,
mm.
get your inner child out and have some fun. That alone can be
Yeah.
so healing. So I do a lot of play therapy within that kind of quite can be sometimes quite painful
Mm,
therapeutic work. But what I really loved about what you said there just a few moments ago was about how when we're in those really challenging times, when those unconscious things have become conscious, when we're struggling with relationships, when we're struggling with whatever's going on in our lives, and we're having those moments that we just think, this is awful, I'm having a terrible time, it's bad. I love that you can kind of get a sense of hope that this is something that I need to go through. I need to go through this discomfort. I
mm,
need to go through this time of disease and disharmony, so that I can learn. And when this is over, there's going to be some beautiful light. There's the sunset at the end. I'm going towards the light. I'm moving towards a positive place. I'm growing. I'm
mm.
developing. And I think it's great to take that sense of hope. good to feel that sense of hope when you are going through really dark and challenging times. So, you know, if you're listening to the show and you are going through dark and challenging times, I think one of the things that I'm getting from this conversation is just how important it is to get help, how important it is to reach out. There's been a lot in the news, on social media, about emotional well-being, mental health. Just recently, there's been a lot of talk of suicide. There's been a lot of talk of, from a materialistic perspective, about, you know, Instagram and Facebook and the TV, and how it's kind of quite having quite negative impact on people. And like you're saying, it's perhaps is just a sign of that time that people are really going through a time of awakening and are feeling the pain of that, and it's part of their growth, their spiritual growth journey.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Um, and it can be difficult to find hope, you know, when,
Mm,
if things are really dark and you've just started to go through the trauma and you've maybe not had, you're not even aware of other therapies or other communities or different ways of thinking. But again, you have to have faith that life and your guides and your guardians and your higher self will take you and help you find those people who can give the encouragement, the support, the love,
mm,
the teachings, the healings, and then, you know, and so to start to heal. And when you start to see improvement, like you're saying, that gives you the encouragement, that gives you the
mm,
optimism. Oh wow,
mm,
I've got out of that dark place. I don't want to ever
mm,
go there again. And I just want to keep
mm,
going down this path. I'm going to change things. I want to keep going to yoga. I want to try these different things. And
mm,
so it's like it's a whole new world. And we see,
mm.
again, we see that. It's amazing when we
Yeah,
do consultations and people, they are this really dark time. And it's like, you know, I just want to say, well, I do say, well done, you know, well done for coming here. Well done
yeah,
for having this conversation.
mm,
It's, you know, life, it's like Alice going down the rabbit hole. It can be a bit of a tumble to start with, but once you know, you finish there, it's a whole new world.
absolutely. Yeah,
And
yeah,
it's incredibly exciting. And when we start to heal and shed these traumas,
yes.
um, life becomes more blissful, more beautiful. We're less dependent on externals to feel good about ourselves,
Mm,
and we start to heal and integrate the inner child. And
yes.
ultimately, life is ultimately about being happy and being in that state of joy like a child. And
Mm,
you know, it's about we shed the past, we shed the sheaths, the layers, the all those things that make us depressed and make us feel weighed down, and get into that state of joy and happiness, which
mm,
starts to come, and you start to see the daylight, and you know, literally and metaphorically. So yeah, it's a
mm,
beautiful process. It starts often as challenging,
mm.
and life is not easy. It doesn't
No,
matter
I
who
don't
you
think
are.
it's meant to be easy either. I
No.
think, you know, we have this fake idea, don't we, that that, you know, life's a series of beautiful evenings out and wonderful friends and wonderful moments, when actually life can be really challenging, and we can really feel quite in like we're in a dark place. We can really feel quite lost. We can be sitting with a lot of emotional pain, and I do think that's very much part of life. And
Mm.
like I love the fact that it's part of this amazing opportunity that we have to recognize that we need to do that work on ourselves, and to shift and to powerfully move ourselves forward to, I talk about my divine calling, but I might have to change it to the Dharma. I love that. That's
Mm.
just a great description. One of my
Mm.
favorite sayings and expressions, which I got from Lord of the Rings, because I'm a total geek.
Can't beat Lord of the
Yeah,
Rings. Lord of the
I
Rings is
love
the
Lord of
best.
the Rings. It's a great movie, isn't it? Great series of movies. I love it.
Yeah.
Um, and um, and it's this too shall pass.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
sometimes when you're absolutely lost and you're feeling so weighed down by the world and whatever's going on in your life, I just have that. This too shall pass. You know,
Mm,
this is not going to go on forever.
mm,
Nothing is ever nothing ever stays the same. Everything is
mm,
continuously growing and developing. And sometimes, as a part of that growth and development, we do have those painful moments that are a gift to us. They're a gift to
mm.
us. And the painful side of it, it will pass. It's not a permanent, nothing is permanent. I've been doing
Uh,
some meditation on impermanence. Uh,
mm,
and I've been finding it incredibly helpful and challenging to really see the impermanence of situations, because quite often we hold on to the good stuff. Sometimes we hold on to the bad stuff too. Um, but we hold on to situations, we hold on to relationships, we sometimes we grip onto things, and actually we just need to let them go, because nothing is ever going to stay fixed. Everything is always going to be growing and developing and moving. And like you were saying at the very beginning, we can see that in science, we can see that in evolution, we can see it in the way that the world has changed. I can see it in the fact that I was having a conversation with someone the other day about the fact that we didn't used to have Google. Can you remember when we didn't used to have Google?
I can actually. Yeah, but that was a while ago, though.
I know,
Yeah.
but I
Mm,
mean, just how much we've grown and developed as people. Now we've got this place we can go to and ask any question, and there's going to be some kind of an answer there. That didn't used to be present. That wasn't there.
that's it.
And it's, you know, it's growth and it's development, isn't it?
It's a collective growth, and it's the early stages of collective consciousness. Like the internet is the way we all connect as a species. We're all connected, and you can connect with someone across on the other side of the world
Mm,
instantaneously. And they say that the next stage of human evolution is where we as a collective become psychic, and we develop like a, 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 a universal or a collective consciousness. And we're already developing these psychic abilities,
I
but
think we really are. Mm,
but then eventually that we as a species, it's just the next step of evolution. We become
mm.
psychic, and it's amazing how you see all these superhero movies, and every other movie is superhero movie with all these this evolution or this these new or these superpowers,
It's the X-Men.
the X-Men. And it's literally evolution. And
Yeah.
there's got to be there's a reason why a lot of these movies are talking about people with superpowers, because a lot of people, they're saying that these schools in China and Mexico and places like that, where kids are expressing these new abilities which you didn't have obviously before, but it's starting to come through in the as in the generations. So we are
Mm,
without doubt evolving as a species.
mm.
We're evolving individually, and we are paving the way for a better, happier world. And it's incredibly exciting. But we're doing a lot of the hard work, both internally and then
And
externally,
externally as well.
with what
Yeah,
we're doing.
yeah.
So it is exciting. It's tough. We're here to work, and
Mm,
like I say, we're here to work. We're here to put the
yeah.
hard work in, but we also need to keep healing and always just try and keep balance, to not overdo us, not
Hmm.
exhaust ourselves. So I certainly, as a therapist, as a teacher, that's my biggest challenge. Probably, you're
Me
experiencing.
too. Getting
Yeah,
that work-life balance is one of the
exactly.
things that I'm really working on at the moment.
And that's self-love,
Yeah.
self-awareness and
Mm,
self-love. You're aware of how you're feeling,
yeah.
and then you have enough self-respect and love to make the time for yourself. And it's
Mm,
one of the biggest challenges. And then we're always healing, we're always releasing trauma, and so we have just keep doing that work once we've kind of gone through a lot of the denser, more challenging stuff. So
mm.
it's never ending, but it certainly gets easier and more joyful, and
Yes.
you know Yeah.
We are works in progress.
We are.
And
Yeah.
James, talking to you just always leaves me with such a great sense of joy. But it really does give me a great sense of hope as well. And I learned so much from talking to you. I love our conversations.
Thank you, Amanda.
And, the internet does connect us in lots of different ways, which brings me to the next point. If you want to talk to James, if you want to ask James any questions, you can email us at studio at radioshields.co.uk. You can email us. I will forward your questions to James, and he would be delighted to answer any of your questions. If you're going through a tough time, if you're wanting information about Ayurvedic medicine, if you're wanting to find out about what yoga class you should attend, any questions about well-being, please do reach out and speak to James. He really is an absolute master of knowledge. His journey has been to gain this knowledge so that he can share it with you. So let's make the most of that, and
Thank you, Amanda.
do email questions into James.
And you can find out about the work that we do at the centre. It's yorkshirewellbeing.co.uk. So we're in Harrogate in North Yorkshire in the UK. And we're primarily a yoga Pilates studio, but we do lots of other things. We have therapists.
Oh, James, you have loads of stuff going on there. It's
seminars.
Such an amazing centre.
Yeah, and Equinox coming up. So 20th, I think it's the Friday the 20th. Great time to do some sort of ceremony, go into a state of contemplation, and it's about putting your intentions through as we move into the spring and summer.
Have you got any retreats coming up at the Yorkshire Wellbeing Centre?
We do, actually, the first weekend of April. We have got our Yoga Ayurveda retreat in Harrogate.
Oh, amazing.
On the studio, Friday to the Sunday. And then we've got one May bank holiday. We do 4 or 5 retreats every year. So you can find all
retreats are amazing
on the Yorkshire Centre for Wellbeing website, www.yorkshirewellbeing.co.uk. And then I do seminars on philosophy or diet, or we have all sorts of things going on. It's about developing the knowledge, and we've got an amazing therapist there as well. So yeah, loads going on. And if you're not local, then find somewhere that's close to you. Find a yoga studio, find a therapist, someone who you can talk to if you're just starting to take these first steps on the journey. If you're going through some difficult times, it's so important just to talk, to express how you're feeling to someone, and even you'll find your own answers just by talking. So very, very important. But yeah, it's been great talking to you, Amanda.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on. And I shall look forward to next month when you're back on again.
Can't wait.
James is on the second Wednesday, sorry. James on the second Wednesday of every month. And he will be available to answer your questions. Do email them in if you want to. I'll forward them to James and he will answer them on the next show. Thank you so much, James. Have an amazing rest of the week.
Thank you very much, and you. See you.